Hello everyone and welcome to STEMfest 2015. My name is Bradley Layton and I'm a professor at the University of Montana where I direct the Energy Technology program. Before we get started, I want to thank you for spending time with me, Governor Bullock, and the fine folks at the Inspired Classroom and an organization known as We Are Montana in the Classroom, who place University of Montana faculty members, graduate students, and professionals in K-12 classrooms statewide to inspire them about higher education and career pathways. Today, with the technology provided by VisionNet, we are able to fulfill this mission. This event is part of a national initiative called STEM Career Accelerator Day, being hosted by STEM Connector. You can find more about their organization at stemconnector.org. My first connection with STEM Connector came through as a result of a National Science Foundation grant I received through their Advanced Technology Education Division to enhance the educational opportunities for my energy technology students, a few of whom you see behind me, to strengthen our relationship with the Blackfeet Community College, to build connections with renewable energy technology companies, and to build connections with high school students around Montana and across the United States. You probably already know this, but the presentation you're about to take part in is a minds-on activity. So get comfortable in your seat, take a deep breath, and get ready to meet and interact with some of Montana's leaders in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Now, I'll hand it over to Governor Bullock, who would like to share with you his vision for the future of STEM education in Big Sky Country.
Hi everyone, I'm Governor Steve Bullock, and I'd like to thank you for being a part of the first ever Montana STEMfest and showing an interest in a career in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math. These are some of the fastest growing career fields in the nation. In fact, over the next decade, Montana is expected to need more than 2,000 new workers a year with skills specific to these fields. And these are good paying jobs in careers such as engineering, research and technology, architecture, and health sciences. I've been working hard to ensure that students like you have access and support to succeed, which is why we've created the Governor's STEM Scholarship Program to provide financial aid to students pursuing one of these careers. We've also launched the Montana STEM Mentors Initiative to encourage more girls to pursue a career in these fields. You all will determine what the future of Montana looks like, and your participation today means that we will have a bright one. Thanks so much for being here and have a great time.
Hello everybody, my name is Tom Gallagher. I'm actually one of Dr. Layton's associates here at Missoula College. I'm a professor here. I absolutely love where I live because I love to fly fish, I love to hike the mountains, and I love to backpack, and I don't think there's any greater place in the world to do it than Missoula, Montana. I also, STEM has been a big impact in my life. Starting back probably about the 7th or 8th grade, and it's led to what I would describe as a very fulfilling and a wonderful career that's led me into higher education. And I love the challenges that come up with it and the satisfaction of solving some of those challenges.
Wonderful. Thank you. Josh, would you mind answering the same questions as well?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Hughes.
I'm Trevor Hughes.
We're Add-A-Tudz Entertainment Company in Team Kaizen. We're out of Great Falls. We're actually Montana's first PlayStation certified game studio, which means that we're our own video game studio. We're our own company, but we have a relationship with PlayStation and are able to publish to their platforms. I guess one of the things I love about living in Great Falls is that we're very centrally located. We're 2 hours away from any city and less than 2 flights away from anywhere in the U.S. And there's kind of a cool novelty that comes with going to different industry events and being known as the guys from Montana, so it's actually helped us out. And
I'd say I like our, again, centrally located, but also like we're in the mountains, we have fresh air, there's not smog, we have seasons, I love that. So yeah.
Okay, well, I'll introduce you my presentation, and I think you'll listen to me for the first part of it here, and then I think you'll get over and listen to Josh. And Josh's presentation, I'm sure it's going to be much more animated with the gaming, and I hope that you'll find this as a piece that gets you to a career like something in gaming. All right, so here's my format for today. First, my presentation is called Making a Connection, and I'm going to tell you my story and then kind of an aha moment I had when I was in high school, of all places. Two, I want to identify a problem. So I think there's a definite problem, and we're bringing awareness today with STEMfest, and we'll talk about a little bit about that problem and then try to solve it as well. Next, I have a really boring or very interesting data page, which you can take a look at, that describes this problem that we have. And then we'll look at some computing-related occupations, my role here at a two-year college, and how a two-year college might be of great service to you in your future. And we'll talk a little bit about dual enrollment, which I think has really had a positive impact on a lot of students. So here's my first live presentation, and I'll just talk when my aha moment came. It started with really mathematics, and I guess some simple characteristics. One, I kind of liked it. It was logic, and then as a result of it, I heard that it's a good thing to know, and I had influential teachers in high school say, yeah, it's really important if you're going to college that you're good in mathematics. And another thing I kept hearing in the background too was that, well, there's lots of great career opportunities with it. So I kind of kept that in mind. And these are two very influential pieces that kind of came as a result of that when I was in high school. And it'll give you an idea how old I am. But this screen on the left here shows the computer that I first learned how to program on. And we had a new class, and of course there's no hard drive. You can see the tape recorder, the cassette recorder to the side there. I don't know, it might have had a big whopping like 4K of memory in it, but it was an actual working computer. And we were able to program in a basic language. I took a new experimental class at our high school, and the teacher there said anybody who gets an A in the class can take home a computer for Christmas holidays. So I had this wonderful opportunity to have my own computer, which I'll take for granted now, at my own house, and I could stay up late writing computer programs. I thought that was really cool. The other kind of influential link that I'll put together here is one of my teachers in, I think it's my junior year, in one of my algebra classes say, hey, anybody that's going to even consider going on to college should pick up this book. And so I paid the money for it, and she ordered it. I picked it up, and it was just boring. It really had a bunch of tables in it. It was the standard mathematical tables, CRC 25th edition, and I didn't really make a connection immediately. But then there was some information in there that started to kind of, in my senior year, kind of make some sense. So we started looking a little bit at how to work with triangles, which is a pretty powerful tool once you understand things like the law of sines, the law of cosines. And here's a simple example that you can measure a tree without having to pull a tape from the bottom of the tree to the top of the tree. And we do something really simple and not super creative, but we work with angles. And we form a triangle out of it. And from that, we're able to figure out a simple problem like how tall is that tree without actually climbing to the peak of it. The other thing I kind of made a connection with is with this algebra, we're always working with the Cartesian coordinate plane, and which was fine and all, but I didn't really discover the true power of that until basically turned it upside down. And as soon as we turned it upside down or started working in that fourth quadrant of the Cartesian coordinate plane, it all of a sudden opened up a door with, well, this is the way that we program computer graphics. So all of a sudden that ugly book I got and my simple little computer, I was able to write some code and do things like create a shape and transform it. Maybe I could rotate it, maybe I could move it about the screen, maybe I could make it scale it, make it larger, make it smaller. And so this was a really important connection for me because it led to things like, well, really, really beautiful computer graphics, which was just captivating for me, image processing, design technologies, and all this came from having a little bit of understanding with my mathematical background and being able to write a little bit of code. So I wasn't actually using these, I was writing these, and this happened when I got to college, and I thought that was really, really interesting and great, and it just all started with that little piece from back when I was in high school. And now it's led to all these new technologies, like if you look in this slide, upper left-hand corner, that big computer we started this talk out with now fits in the palm of my hand and is extremely powerful. It's called a Raspberry Pi. If you haven't heard of these devices, they're $30. And they're a complete computing system that you can plug in and do just about anything with. I use these for prototyping in one of my classes, so our students are learning programming using a Raspberry Pi, but they're also able to hook up in all sorts of external devices to do with sensors on to do all sorts of interesting things. Another really interesting technology I've been working with is virtualization, cloud computing, web development for smartphones, and again, we have lots of coding, programming that goes along with that, computer security. We've started a new initiative here at Missoula College involving electronic health records. There's a rapid adoption of the health record with the goal of improving, lowering costs and improving patient care and improving the healthcare system through the electronic health record. And then we've always worked with, and this was my first career, was working as a network administrator. And these are all things that came about, I think, because of those influential times in high school. And this is my connection that I made over the last few years of high school into college and into my career. Okay, so here's my next part of my talk today is my problem statement. And I think with any good research project, you have to clearly identify your problem. So I wrote mine out here, and I won't have too much text on any slide, but this one I'll read aloud, and you can follow along with me. So as society continues the rapid adoption of new technologies, maintaining a workforce of individuals educated with STEM skills to develop, deploy, and maintain these technologies will remain a great challenge. Furthermore, not enough young people are choosing STEM education programs despite high demand and high wages associated with careers in STEM. And this, I think, is the root why a lot of us have devoted time and energy to STEMfest today. Here's my other data-filled slide. So, and this information comes from the Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor has a really, really wonderful website that is called the Occupations Handbook. And according to this website, the research from the Department of Labor says that there's going to be over 1 million new individuals needed to fill positions in computing related occupations very soon, by the year 2020. And that means from now on into that period of time. And these computing related occupations include programmers, web developers, network administrators, computer support professionals, and database administrators. We're also seeing high demands for people who are interested and have skills in IT security analysts. And then the one I just mentioned before is the adoption of the electronic health record, which became mandatory in the year 2015 here. And we're looking for more informaticians, people who have computer science skills, but actually work in hospitals, medical clinics, and research facilities. And so this is a field that we're seeing a large amount of growth in as well. So these people have jobs that some are desk jobs, but some are actually out in the field working with server farms, fixing computer servers, creating architects that are creating networks, working in medical facilities, and then working to prevent things like cybersecurity attacks. Programmers are needed all over the place, particularly in the gaming industry. So there's our problem statement, and there's a lot of different solutions for it, and one of the solutions that I'll bring up here is two-year colleges. So not all these positions require four-year degrees or advanced degrees, and you'll find that the two-year colleges across the state are places where a person can become highly qualified for an entry-level position in all sorts of different computer-related positions. All right, some of the advantages of going to these two-year colleges is a lot of them have these close affiliations, and we have this at Missoula College as well, with a lot of the network industry. So for instance, there's Cisco networking academies throughout the state of Montana. We're also a CompTIA authorized academy, and we teach a lot of our courses use official curriculum from companies like Microsoft, Oracle, IBM. So these are really, really great opportunities for students class sizes are smaller. These skill sets are tightly woven and designed for some of the needs that employers are looking for. And one of the really unique opportunities we have here in Missoula is we have a 2-year college that's embedded within a 4-year research institution, which creates all sorts of interesting opportunities for students. I think we have great student life here on a UM campus, whether you're at the 2-year college or the 4-year college. It's all integrated together. So here's I took a shot of one of our students, and this was his project that he had, and I'm not going to go through and explain it all, but he was working with a droid here, and he was in a C++ programming class, and he was using a Raspberry Pi, his droid, his smartphone, and a variety of different controllers to put the pieces together on this to control his droid. Another program that I want to just talk briefly about is the dual enrollment program. So dual enrollment means that a student's enrolled in a class that's receiving both high school graduation credit and at the same time getting college credit. And there's a lot of good reasons to jump on board with these. A lot of us don't utilize our senior year in high school, and I was probably as guilty of this as anyone, as we should. And dual enrollment allows us to start college while we're still in high school. And so with these types of early college, high school programs, we find that a lot of students gain the confidence they need. A lot of folks don't feel like they belong in college. It's a great opportunity to kind of test the waters a little bit, provide some confidence for them. These are reduced cost classes. I think they're right now about $49 a credit. Those folks that the research shows that those folks who have participated in a dual credit class are more likely to go on to college. Once they get to college, they're more likely to have a higher GPA and are more likely to graduate from college. So these are all reasons we're really promoting it. In the STEM area here at Missoula College, we're both working on these, and we also have students that are enrolled in things like pre-calculus, subjects like HTML and CSS, Java programming, Python programming, technical drafting, AutoCAD, and we're just about ready to open up some dual enrollment opportunities in the area of robotics, and a new robotics option that we'll be looking to add to our electronics engineering technology program. So there's some really interesting and great things going on. All right, so I'll kind of stop here again and open up for questions, but stop where we started with. So when I was in high school, back a lot of years ago, these were two little images here that influenced me, and I'd encourage you all to consider and these STEM-related opportunities that are out there for you.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. And we're gonna go ahead and hold off for a few minutes on questions, because I am gonna go ahead and let AddATudz, Team Kaizen Games, go ahead and begin their presentation. Are you guys with us from Great Falls?
Yep, we are. Ready to go.
Awesome. All right, go ahead and take it away.
All right, cool. Thanks, everyone. And like we said, we're Josh and Trevor with Add-A-Tudz Entertainment Company. That's our logo. And for those of you who don't know, this is a game called Little Big Planet. It's a game that Sony makes on PlayStation platforms, and you can do whatever you want in it. It has built-in 3D art and programming tools. So what we do as a studio, we call ourselves a teaching studio, which means we make normal video games, which means games that you wouldn't see in a classroom, but we do a lot of education, outreach, and that kind of stuff, and a lot of community outreach. So we use Little Big Planet as a quick, easy way to show off all the different STEM careers you can get in the game industry. And this is our presentation on the different jobs available. So first of all, one thing you got to know if you're going to go into something like video game design is you're always on deadlines. You're always having a limited amount of time and a limited amount of money to make your project, which on average for a AAA game, which is like the kind you see on the shelves at like GameStop, Walmart, whatever, the average is 2 years and roughly $20 million, give or take. Which sounds like a lot of time and money until you're having to pay overhead, until you're having to pay for heat in the room and power and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden you really have to budget stuff out. And if let's say you have a great idea and you pitch it to like Sony, Microsoft, whatever, they're not going to hand you $20 million and say, see it in 2 years, hope it works out. They're going to set up what's called the milestone setup, which means that you will be given a tiny amount of the money and say like in 3 months you need 2 characters and a level working. Once you reach that milestone, you're given the next tiny bit and the next milestone is set. So you're constantly going up against deadlines. And the way you get those deadlines met is through teamwork. The first member of the team is a game designer, which is kind of basically what Trevor and I do. You're a jack of all trades, master of none, and you basically learn a little bit of everyone's job so that you can be that person they all communicate with to make sure that everyone's effort is being put in to create a singular product that comes off like it was organized. Otherwise, you'd have a bunch of different people all working on their own little pet projects, and it would all come together in a sloppy way that wouldn't feel like a completed product. Next up, you have your story writer. This has become really big in our industry as video games have become recognized as a great storytelling medium. And your story writers often will research stuff that is completely outside the game industry, like literature, plays, different world events, and it makes their stories more believable. Like, for instance, one of the big games that came out for Sony in the past year was The Order 1886. And in order to make that world more believable, they actually studied Victorian England and made several references to real-life key historical figures of the time, like Nikola Tesla and that kind of stuff. So if you're going to go into story writing, definitely become like multifaceted in all the different stuff you want to like learn and read about in the world, because it will help you become that much better at telling a story. Then we also have business math. And this is really important because if you're going to go pitch a game idea to someone, they don't just want to know that you have a great idea that could end up being a fun game. They want to know if they're going to fund you to make it, that the money won't be used to go buy 20 jet skis or something. So you need to be able to show that we have a plan in place not only to make an awesome game, but here's how much money we need, here's how we're going to use it, and here's the time frame that we will turn it around on. And the more detailed you can be, the better, because it's showing people that you're not just wanting to quote-unquote win the lottery, you're actually taking their investment seriously. Now we're on to the different kinds of artists. The first kind of artist is a concept artist, and this is one of those jobs that's kind of misunderstood in our industry. Everyone thinks you just grab a piece of paper and draw a character out and boom, you're done. And nothing is actually further from the truth. You actually, a lot of concept artists go to college to study anatomy and biology because they really need to know how to make their character look. And also, when you're designing a character in a game, you never ever arrive at the final concept your first try. You're always going to do what we initially call like a sheet, where you'll have 10 different versions of the character, each with different clothes, different hairstyles, different poses of standing sometimes to emote different attitudes. And people will go over and say, well, I like the boots of A, the hair of C, and do it all again, and then the artist has to go through and redraw the character, and you go through this refinement process where sometimes you can go through 1,000 concepts for a character before you arrive at what your audience sees on screen. But once you've got it figured out and you know what you want, you hand it off to the next artist, which is a 3D artist. A 3D artist uses a program called Maya, and they basically start off with a flat gray cube that they pull and stretch until it's the outer shape of what they want. And once they have that outer shape, it's still only a shape of what you want. It doesn't actually have the ability to animate or to move, and it's still flat gray. So the next person that we hand it off to is...
Hang on for a sec, you're getting interrupted by the...
Yeah.
The screen is.
All right, we'll keep going. So we only have a little bit of time. But the next person on there is a texture artist. A texture artist paints a paper-thin piece of paper that is wrapped around the entire model, kind of like wrapping a present. And the whole point of that is it gives you the outside look of the model. So when you see a character in a game, everything that colors them and makes them look unique on the outside is literally paper-thin. Then we hand it off to a rigging artist. A rigging artist goes on the inside of the model and builds a skeleton and tells each chunk of flesh out in the outside model of what part of the skeleton to follow. And this is important because without that skeleton, it's incapable of moving. And it's really crazy because when you get to the point of animating, you're not actually telling the model to move its arm, you're telling the skeleton to move and the model follows it. Once we're good with that though, we have animation. There's actually two different types. This is the older style of animation that's more still used today, but it's very old. It's called keyframing. Let's say the fist at his waist is position 1 and the fist at his back is position 2. We tell the computer what position 1 and 2 are, and the computer fills in all the missing frames in between and creates a seamless, smooth animation to make it work. This style, like I said, is older. It's still used a lot, especially by indie studios that don't have access to the next kind, which is mocap. The more famous kind, where people put on a neoprene suit and stand in a room full of cameras, and their movements are recorded. But even, I mean, you have really big expensive studios like Naughty Dog or the Ubisoft team that does Assassin's Creed, and where they do like 90% of their animations this way. But they'll still have a keyframe artist come in and clean up any what we call junk data, where the camera, like camera A and camera B, didn't agree on what they saw, so the character's arm freaks out. So they'll still have a keyframing artist come in and fix that, and they'll also have a keyframing artist do stuff that is generally too dangerous to have your like mocap actors do, like jumping off of a building and swan diving into a bale of hay, that kind of thing. Next up is programming, and you guys heard a lot about programming in the previous presentation. It's very important because without programmers, all the individual pieces of art are just that, individual pieces of art. They're not a complete fluid experience. And so programmers have to know a little bit about art because they have to know what they're looking at and how to get it to behave in the game world. If you want a great way to play with programming right now, download Unity 3D, and that's at unity3d.com. It's what we call a game engine. It's an engine takes all the art and code and puts it together into a complete package. And Unity 3D is a free download that is used by a lot of professional studios, and there's a whole vibrant community on YouTube that can walk you through learning the basics and getting up and running in Unity pretty fast. Next up we have audio. And audio is a big part of our industry, especially on two fronts. One is composing. You even have people like Nobuo Uematsu, the guy that composes the Final Fantasy soundtracks, and he's actually doing concerts around the world now performing his music that he's made for games. The other is for what we call Foley work, and Foley work is like making the sounds of environmental stuff, like a sound of hitting a desk or a door shutting or anything like that, anything that's not human. And you also, in attachment to audio, I believe this is the next slide, you have acting. Acting is totally different in the game industry than it is in normal Hollywood. You're not going to get paid $15 million for a project, you're not going to have a private jet, but you will make a decent wage. But the thing is too, is you have to have a very vivid imagination, because one day you'll be working on a project where they'll mail you a script and you have to go into your own little 4x4 foam cube and read off the lines and deliver a good performance. And then different days you'll be doing, like for instance, a Naughty Dog project where you're flown out to a soundstage where you and the actors strap on the neoprene suits and actually act out both in body and voice on a soundstage together. And regardless of whether you're acting in a team or alone, you still have to deliver the same quality performance. For instance, one game in this that a lot of people know about is Ratchet and Clank. It's a buddy game between an alien type dude and a robot. But the funny part is, the guys that voice Ratchet and Clank didn't meet each other until after the second game was completed, but they still had to deliver a level of performance like they've been lifelong buds. And our single most misunderstood job in the industry, QA, also called beta testing. People think that's their dream job, where they're like, oh yeah, I get to go play video games all day, and nothing is further from the truth. What really happens is you go in the morning, your boss gives you a 2-minute section of a game, and you play that 2-minute section over and over and over again for 8 hours trying to break it. If you break it, you have to write a report about it, break it again, capture it on video, show the video and the report to your supervisor, the programmer, and the artist involved, work with them to fix it, and then try to break it again. It's a really strenuous job, and the only reason people go into it is because they're trying to break into something else in the industry, and they're using that job to get their foot in the door. So, for instance, they're already going to college for the position they want, and this is just to get them at the company so that once they graduate college, they can promote into the position they were really going for. All right, so now this one's new because ever since the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 generation, community support. You have people that handle public relations, fan mail, support, focus groups. And it's become really big because as we become a more connected world, people don't just want to feel like they're buying a product, they want to feel like they're buying into a sense of belonging. And you need someone to be their point person that they can talk to online so that they don't feel like they're being ditched by the company they just paid for goods and services from. And it's a very big, important role, and it's another one that's very high energy, very strenuous, but very rewarding. Next up, we have marketing. Marketing is quickly and stylishly telling people that they need your game in their life. And the best way to do that is through what's called an elevator pitch. And it's based around the fantasy idea of, oh, if you got into an elevator with someone who had all the money and power in the world to make your dreams come true, what would you tell them in that 30-second elevator ride to get them on your side? And the same concept applies to selling a game, and the best way to check it out is grab your favorite games, flip the case over, and read the paragraph on the back, because that is a marketing pitch and a good elevator pitch. So, like, basically don't tell them everything in 30 seconds, just tell them enough that they want to go and find out everything. Next up is legal, and that's a very big field in our industry because you deal with things like what's called non-disclosure agreements, where people have to agree legally that they won't divulge information like a storyline or what project's currently being worked on. And you also have what's called intellectual property rights, where you own the rights to certain games, or you're owning the right to your ideas, and you have to work all that kind of stuff out. And for a while, our industry was also going through kind of a bad thing with what was called copyright trolling, where people would try to claim that they had the copyright to individual words. Like one guy tried to claim he had the legal right to the word edge, so any game that had the word edge in it, he would sue them and claim they were violating his rights. King.com for a while was claiming that they had the rights to the word candy, so if you made anything that had the word candy in it. And so people needed lawyers to step up and protect them from that kind of copyright trolling. So if you want to try to break into the game industry, but you also have a lot of interest in the legal side of things, there is a lot of need and a lot of room for you. And then we have human relations. Human relations is kind of like community manager, what I mentioned a few slides back, but instead of dealing with people outside your company, you're dealing with people exclusively inside your company. So you're mediating fights, making sure people get paid on time, making sure that people get all their benefits, and organizing events to try to increase employee morale. It's a very important position that is one that definitely requires a lot of patience, but if you're a people person and you'd rather be dealing with people exclusively inside your company, there's tons of companies of every stripe, not just in the game industry, that need a human relations person. And then we also talk to people, like, just out of curiosity, Allie, how much time do we have left?
We're actually doing pretty good. It's 2:35. I'd say if you guys want to go for like another 5 minutes or so, then we'll have some time for question and answer before the end of the day.
All right, cool. Yeah, I was just making sure we got through fast. Like, this is our last slide then before it's. All right, cool. This is our last slide then before we open it up to questions and answers. And what it is branding. And people always confuse branding for marketing. And marketing is telling someone why they want your product. Branding is the immediate emotional response they get when they think of you. And the reason that that's important is it used to be a big thing for only companies to think about, but in this day and age, when everyone has their own YouTube, their own Twitter, Facebook, like, you have to worry about what's called personal branding, like what people immediately think when they think of you. And it's not out of an attempt to win a popularity contest. It's out of understanding that how you represent yourself can impact others around you. And the reason that's important in the game industry is that a lot of studios, us included, are hypersensitive. And when people apply to join us, we look at their Facebook account and Twitter and see how they carry themselves. Like, are they starting fights with people? Are they basically doing vitriol? Or are they uplifting? Are they looking for ways to work with people? Are they looking to be helpful? And how they act online is a big indicator to us whether or not they get a follow-up interview. And the big reason is that when people talk on social media, they turn their filter off. They act like they aren't being watched. They act like they're in power. And it gives you a very real indicator of how they'll treat fans, of how they'll treat fellow employees. And if someone is acting really mean online, I can assume that if I bring them on staff and they go to all these different expos like E3, Penny Arcade Expo, those kind of places, that they'll have a badge with their name on it and my company name, and that they'll likely treat someone at that expo the same way, like mistreat a fan, mistreat a member of the media, mistreat a member of a different studio or a publisher. And if they see them acting that way and see our company name on that, they assume that we're okay with that and that we're backing that kind of behavior, and that can very negatively affect us. And that's what's called a negative interaction, and on average it takes 12 positive interactions to fix one negative one. So in other words, they'd have to run into 12 nice people from our studio before they assume that maybe that one person was just representing themselves as opposed to behaving in a way that we're okay with. So a lot of studios have become very, very, I don't want to say bad antsy, but very much aware of how branding affects.
Hypervigilant.
Yeah, exactly, hypervigilant. And it's one of those things that people need to realize better, that when you're acting on social media, it's not just you and your friends that see it, it's very public. And what may sound one way to you and your friends may be very hurtful or very damaging to someone else that doesn't have the full context or whatever. And so it's teaching people to be aware of how they behave online, because it can affect career opportunities.
And just because you delete it doesn't mean it's gone.
No.
Like, anybody could have screen capped it.
Say it louder.
Oh. Anybody could have screen capped it.
Yeah. This is coming from a company where we've had 2 employees leave our company in the past year because we told them that some of the stuff, that the way they were behaving online was unacceptable, and so companies do follow up on that. And another story that I've heard that kind of drives it home is that there was this guy who was at a baseball game, you know, those stadiums that have the tiered seating. He was way up in the nosebleeds and wanted to slide down the railing, kind of goofing off. He slid down the railing too fast, lost control, flipped over the safety railing, fell on a family, and a guy caught it on his iPhone and uploaded it to YouTube. Well, since they caught it on his iPhone, the police were able to identify him and charge him with assault. The family he fell on was able to identify him and sued him for medical damages. And his employer saw it, decided they didn't want to be associated with that, and fired him the next day at work. So it's one of those things that just be aware that when you're in the public eye, your behavior reflects more than on just yourself.
Awesome, thank you guys. Okay, so right now we have maybe about 10 minutes before I know the end of the day and the end of day 1 of STEMfest. And so I want to open this up to questions both for Tom Gallagher and the awesome guys at Add-A-Tudz. So let's see, show of hands, which school would like to start us off? Or shall I just call on you? Oh, I think I see some hands over in Great Falls. Great Falls, will you please go ahead and start us off with questions?
How much do you guys get paid?
Go ahead, Josh.
Starting wage in the game industry is $95,000 a year. And, or actually, no, that's more average. That's actually an industry-wide average. But we're kind of a different boat because we're what's called a startup, meaning that we're trying to get our company up and going. And if you go work a 9-to-5 job, that's one thing. And that's kind of, you know, when they're saying, oh, $95,000 annually is the game industry standard, they're talking about people that aren't starting their own companies. They're people that are going to work for like EA, Activision, Sony, whatever. When you start your own company, you technically get paid a lot less because you're not doing 9 to 5, you're doing every single day. Yeah, 24/7. So I guess that's a good thing to bring up too when you're thinking about career. Decide what you want to go for. That do you want the more, you know, they say it's stability for a 9 to 5 job, but that really isn't always the case. But do you want to work primarily roughly around 40 hours a week, or do you mind putting in a bit extra? Because if you want to own your own company and do your own concepts, it's going to be a lot more than 40 hours a week.
And that's anytime you're an entrepreneur. Like, any small business you go into is going to have a lot more work than your standard 9-to-5 business job.
Yeah.
And I'll just add to that, if you're interested in some of these jobs too, and I'll point you back to that resource. If you look at Department of Labor, they have a ton of information on it. And I could just briefly read from their website here. Computer and information research scientists, their median pay in 2012 was $102,000. Network architects were $91,000. Computer programmers were $75,000. Computer support people were just right around $50,000. Systems analysts were just under $80,000. Same with database administrators. Security analysts, $86,000. Network and computer system operator, $72,000. Software developers, $93,000. Web developers, $65,000. So those numbers are out there. The other thing to kind of keep in mind too is that sometimes, depending upon where you live, the salary range varies greatly, and a lot of that has to do with cost of living. And then if you're a person who's an entrepreneur like Josh and his company there, you know, that you really got to be passionate about what you do and just really love it. And they obviously do. They have some great things going there. So that's the other aspect of it. What's your passion too? It's more than just your money. And I always think that, you know, if you can find something to do that you like to do, and people are willing to pay you for it, you have found something pretty special. If you can combine those two into a career, yeah, maybe it'll make more than you want. Maybe it won't, but it'll still, if you can pay your bills doing things that you're passionate about, I just think you're so much better off in life.
Well, and on top of that, if you can live where you want, you know, like say, you know, a lot of people live in these high urban areas, and yeah, they're getting paid more, but a lot more of their money's going to cost of living and, you know, commuting and all that kind of stuff. Like, whereas in Montana, especially with the game industry, we're all digital, so everything's online. Me and Josh can live where it's an awesome place to live, but it's also a lot cheaper to pay for to live here.
Yeah, I like to put it in perspective, like we're having to put together business plan presentations. And one of the things we had to compare is, especially when talking to publishers based in like California, is like, you know, technically speaking, for us to develop a game, it's a lot cheaper, and we have to explain why it's cheaper. And one of the things that we've shown is that if someone's making the industry average in LA, so $95,000 a year in LA, and if they move to Great Falls, Montana, they would only have to make $65,000 a year to keep the exact same quality of life. And that's, so, you know, if you live in a high urban area, it's going to cost you like that much more. Just
33% more almost?
Yeah, yeah.
Josh, I'd like to have, you know, piggyback. Hi, I'm Mom. Piggyback off of Tom about when some kids ask you about do they need to go to a 4-year college like Full Sail, and explain that a 2-year college is a great place to go to start.
Oh yeah, well, and it's one of the things that we always try to push in our industry, because I mean, I don't know how it is in high school now, but when I went to high school, a lot of people were under the idea that, okay, you finish high school, go to a 4-year college, and then you've learned everything you need to learn, and it's locked and you're done. And in our world, that's just not the case. We need people that are open to being lifelong learners, because, I mean, if you look at video game consoles, for instance, every 5 years, roughly, you have like a new PlayStation, a new Xbox, a new Nintendo, and that means you're having to relearn everything from the ground up again, because you're having to relearn what's the best way to do programming, what's the best way to do art, and make sure that it runs correctly. So a lot of times what people have seen too is that what's better is sometimes like a 2-year college, where you get people into the basics and get them to the point where they understand that they're going to be spending a lot of their own time relearning tools, learning new software, learning all that kind of stuff. Like a lot of people ask us what kind of what's the best college to go to, and we tell them if you can swing the money, you know, she mentioned Full Sail, that's kind of the Ivy League-ish of the entertainment industry. Like, you can learn how to make movies, do music, in any field imaginable that's in the entertainment industry. Full Sail teaches it. And another high-end one is the Art Institute. Those help out a lot. But even at that, we have people on our staff that went to University of Montana for computer science, and they're amazing at what they do. And one of the reasons they're amazing at what they do is not because they went to this school or that school. It's because they went to a school that pushed on them. You're always going to be learning if you're going into a computer-related field, so accept it and roll with it. And like the people that understand that are the ones that go a lot further.
Awesome. I want to jump. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I'm sorry. The other thing I was going to just say too, that you know what Josh is saying, that you are continually learning on a regular basis. I learn every day something new, and there's there's something called Moore's Law that's out there. It's been around since the 1960s, and basically Moore was he was an engineer for Intel, and he said, well, my statistics will show that the speed of the microprocessor will double every 2 years. Well, we found out it was every 18 months, and we also found not only is the speed of microprocessor still today doubles every 18 months, but we find similar statistics with memory, with storage capacity, that everything we're doing, you have about an 18-month lifespan on it before it doubles. And so we see that continuing at least for the next few years, and that's why we need to keep learning. You really got to, again, you got to find something you're passionate about, you really love to do.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, I want to jump to some of our other schools to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask a question. So that was Great Falls. How about Sentinel? Sentinel, do you have a question for either of our presenters?
Questions, guys?
That one in the back?
Not today, thank you.
All right. How about Columbia Falls?
Okay, so since you seem to have a lot of experience in the gaming industry, what has your experience been with deadlines and how the whole teamwork idea has functioned together?
Oh, good question. Like, especially coming from a startup, we've had to be kind of crazy with our deadlines because we deal with staffers that also have day jobs until we're fully funded. So we've been pretty good with it because, you know, when you set a goal and everyone's kind of working towards that goal, it's good. But also, it's really important to look for what company to work with because, you know, everyone's like, I think when you see this with people who want to, for instance, make it in music or movies too, they all kind of approach the entertainment industry the same way, that it's the all-important holy grail to get signed or to get a project funded or whatever. And everyone's like, oh yeah, I'll get the big bucks then and it'll all be puppies and rainbows. And what they don't realize is yes, it's important to get money for your project. It's important to get it on rails and get it going. But it's also equally important, if not more important, to know who you're doing business with and what their track record is. Because if you get all the money in the world from the wrong company, you will regret it and it will become a nightmare. And so because of that kind of stuff, like that's, for instance, why we kind of sought to become PlayStation certified and why we choose to, whenever we can, to try to team up with them. Like we haven't done a huge amount with them yet. Like we've done an event where they came to Great Falls and did an event here, and we also talked with them a little bit about our educational outreach programs and stuff. But they're a company that has shown that they're very much willing to, for instance, delay a game to extend deadlines, because it's one of those things that it's important to try to meet a deadline, but if you're going up a position where you would have to make an obvious drastic cut in quality, it's not like people are sitting back eating pizza playing. They were actually working their butt off, but there's obviously going to be hitting a wall where you would have to do a severe cut in quality to meet a deadline. Sony's shown that they're one of those companies that will sit down, talk with you, figure out a new milestone, set it, because quality is more important than meeting an arbitrarily set deadline. And the big reason you want to set deadlines is you want to keep everyone on track to make sure everything's going, but you don't want them to be so rigid that they end up harming your project instead of helping it, because the whole goal is to take a big, long 2-year process that can be kind of scary to imagine for most people and shrink it down into more easily attainable goals so that everyone involved from both your staff side and also the publisher side knows that for the money being spent, something's being done.
And everybody's comfortable.
Yeah, and that something is that you're marching towards a goal, because for a lot of people, both on giving the money side and also doing the work side, it can be harder to see the journey of a 2-year span, where if they know that something needs to be done in roughly 45 days or something, that's a lot easier to understand for a lot of people.
And one thing that's always important to remember on that too is to under-promise and over-deliver.
Yeah.
And by that I mean, like, if say you have 45 days and you think you can get 3 models done, pitch 2. Or pitch 1, and if you get 3, awesome. If you get 1, you don't look like you've overpromised and can't deliver what you're trying to promise.
And then high school journalism.
Oh yeah, like I guess that's one thing to bring up too. Like in high school, I was on the school paper, and that helps out a lot because you're on a team where you're having to do something every 30 days. And getting all these different people to submit articles, photographs, and whatever, and someone to lay it out, get it to the publisher on time. That kind of stuff helps out a lot because it teaches you that discipline of working together as a team and putting that trust in other people to get their part done while you're getting your part done.
Herding cats.
Yeah, and also with the leadership side of it, when you're in the upper management side of it, we jokingly call it herding cats, because you're having to get all these different people that have their own artistic or programming sensibilities to kind of control the chaos, come together and get something done that, like I said, mentioned earlier, feels like a single project as opposed to the imaginations of 20 different people that really weren't working together. And it's one of those things that it's definitely a people person skill kind of thing. You have to learn how to deal with a lot of chaos.
Awesome. Okay, we're almost out of time, you guys. But I know that Belgrade is still there. Belgrade, do you guys have any questions? Oh, slumping down in the seat back there, shaking head. Okay, all right. I didn't want to cut you off, but I just wanted to make sure that we hit every school in time, because it is just about the end of the day. And I want to thank everybody so much for joining us for STEMfest today. And we'll be back tomorrow with some other amazing university role models and STEM industries. So please take a minute and help me thank Tom Gallagher and Add-A-Tudz Game Studio. Thank you guys so much, and we appreciate everything.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice.
What was that?
You took a piece of paper, put it up to the camera that says thank you.